Let's talk about the employee workplace and what that entails. I'm not always talking about the physical workplace necessarily. Let's talk about how people work. Flex time is becoming more popular across the entire time, especially since a lot of us now have an opportunity to work from home. You'll see there's pushback. There's a lot of companies saying, you need to come back to work and work here full time. No more remote work. Another one saying, remote work, we'll offer you that to you, except we're going to reduce your pay. Okay, if you're not living in an urban area, oh, you'll have all kinds of different things. But you have flex time has kind of survived all this stuff. Flex time is kind of like, we want all our employees to be here between 10 and 2 for meetings and everything else. We don't care what you start before or after, whichever you want to do, work late. That actually works. You have to have a core time. Sometimes you have core days. You'll see almost every iteration of a work schedule depending upon what's out there. Here's kind of how a flex time chart works. You'll see the lunch period, core times for meeting times and everything else. It just depends what's out there and what people want. Sometimes you'll have a compressed work week, but you may have somebody working 40 hours in 4 days. You may have even smaller than that. It just depends. People can actually schedule different times. You have a lot more flexibility in today's work than we've ever had before, but too many people have taken advantage of it. So you're seeing pushback on a regular basis. Over here, you're going to work 9 to 5 or 8 to 1. Well, can you do all your work in 5 hours a day? A lot of surveys have been done, and for the most part, the employees that are scheduled to work 8 hours a day, most of them work about 5.5 to 6 hours. So this one company in Germany, their workday is 5 hours, but okay, no small talk, social media, phones and backpacks, company emails, they're checked twice a day. That's it. They really keep everything highly focused. And it seems to work for them because they've continued this practice over a number of years now. So 44% of Americans work from home at least once a week or more. Okay, a lot of employees choose hours. And if they get to choose hours, sometimes one of the most expensive items on the list of things in life is childcare or elder care. If they have a chance to sit down and make that easier, that's an opportunity for that. And sometimes that benefit can help people limit absences and increase productivity and save money by being home and coping with some of those things. Some companies offer hot desking or sharing a desk with other employees who work at different times. By hot desking, there's a series of desks out there. You just sit down and come in, park yourself down, and have access to a computer or park your laptop and so on. So you have different ways of doing work at home or doing work in the workplace. The benefits really, it depends what studies you read. You can increase productivity because you have fewer sick days, or there's no communication. You'll see a lot of issues is that a lot of times the people that choose to work remotely have less chance of being promoted than those that show up to work on a regular basis. I'm not certain how you can separate that because the bosses that see the person showing up all the time, they're going to say, okay, I know who you are. This person at home that they see on a screen on Zoom, that's all they see. They don't see all the different interaction and everything else. So you see the humanity of humans coming forward. So it all depends what you're doing on home-based work. I'm not certain it's always possible and that it really is beneficial as much as we think. But to society, there's less traffic on the road. We all just drive faster now, and also discourages community crime. Okay, that can happen. There's challenges though. It increases the need to resolving zoning, forbidding business deliveries. I don't know about you, but Amazon has a pretty hopping business all the time in our neighborhood. So it just depends what's out there. A lot of tools out there for communication. You'll see all the different ones over here. I'm certain that you'll have at least 5 more you can add to this list. It just depends out there. You won't even see Zoom is sitting over there, Google Docs, and so on. All these different tools are out there. If you think that driving is really bad, I'm surprised. You'll see Los Angeles here. You're on the road 100 times, 100 hours a year. But the reality is, as you go down, you'll see some other people have an awful tough time itself. The one not on here is actually Mexico City, is actually worse than Los Angeles. But Los Angeles, we have the 405 to deal with it. Oh yeah, I just love the 405, especially at rush hour when you sit there crawling along at 5 miles an hour, if you're lucky. So that being said, you'll see we're not the only ones that have traffic problems. There's a one odd tool here they put in job sharing. This is a pretty rare item. I've used it twice now in my entire career in human resources. Frankly, it works out really good. I had two people that retired in the same job, and well, and the one wanted to retire. And so what we did is we worked it out between the two. I didn't care who showed up because they're both excellent employees. So they worked it out between the two of them who would show, and they all talked to each other on a regular basis. It worked out really good because we had our office manned 100% full time every single week out of the year. And I had two really good employees, and neither one of them needed the benefits anymore. So, that being said, I saved on the benefits. I had two people, they both had some source of income. Instead of retiring and being crazy, they said they could work part-time, and they worked and they coordinated very well. That lasted multiple years in both situations like that. So you'll have stuff like that. Job sharing works. Almost nobody does it, but when you do, it works really good. Sometimes the idea of promoting employees, sometimes you move people up and sometimes you move them out. It just depends. I really think it's a good idea to rotate people into different positions to see the organization as a whole, especially if you see them being leaders in the organization as well. Have them work in different areas to see what the other side does and actually improve the overall scope of their perception. And that way you'll have a lot less of what I call the actual silo effect. If you recall silos, if you go out into the countryside and see farms, you'll see big metal or cement tubes where they keep the wheat goes here, the rye goes here, and this goes here. So you'll have that, and everything is separated. Sometimes you'll see that in an organization. And if you plan on working with employees and developing them, sometimes you change them from one silo to the next, and they can learn and actually cross train between them. It works out really good. Sometimes you have to terminate employees. And in my opinion, number one, you always treat them with dignity and respect no matter what happens. You don't deal with the person as an individual. You deal with the employee and the work that needed to be done or wasn't being done if you have to go through termination. So, that being said, terminating an employee, make certain that you do everything and let them leave with dignity and save face. 67% of all lawsuits between employees and employers come in that moment of termination. And if you treat them well, you'll avoid a lawsuit and hard, horrible feelings. It just depends how you go about doing it. I believe it can be done in a very humane way. Here are some points about avoiding wrongful discharge lawsuits. And if it pertains to you, feel free to use that. Keep the shopping list and maybe this chapter for your notes for the future. Sometimes you want to downsize your employees. And so, that being said, you may sit down and offer some type of incentive packages, which is pretty common, especially for older employees. They can move on and you have more space. But a lot of times I've seen where you have this rule, oh, we're going to sit down and reduce our workforce, and you don't, you just replace them. It just depends what's out there. If they retire, you increase the morale of people that survived, and you might open up more spaces so people don't get laid off. That also is a great tool for that. Whenever you have a valued employee leaving that you really are missing, find out why, and maybe you can avoid that in the days to come in the future. A lot of times, schedule, flex time, hybrid workplace, make certain you can sit down, work from home, and work at the same time if you can pull that off. Employee discipline, working conditions. These are all things that happen almost all the time in a workplace, and they're part of the environment that we have in the world of employment, especially that affects human resources. Take care.